Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused in the areas of advanced illnesses, typically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate types of services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement, an avid writer having published well over 500 healthcare articles, an avid book author and self-publisher having published 21 books for hospice nurses, 24 for caregivers, 5 for holistic nurses, and 6 for my fellow end-of-life doulas. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying, as well as the journey to death and dying. We are all going to die. Shouldn't we know more about how that process looks like? We shouldn't be afraid. It happens to all of us. If these are topics of interest, please consider subscribing below, hitting the bell notification. I try to publish videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, corresponding to articles that are coming out on compassioncrossing.info at approximately the same time. Occasionally there will be a gardening update or a house project update or some other update in between. The topic for today's video is near and dear to my heart. Is depression caused by a chemical imbalance? The answer is no, and I'll let you know that in advance. We'll go over the science behind that. But before we go to the topic of today's video, which is depression, I like to ask you, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? I believe in life we are impacted in all different directions. The government shutdown, the food stamp benefits, and I was on food stamps for a period of my life. And all this different things happening either at us or to us or around us, to friends and family, co-workers. We can't escape all the tragedy that's going on around us. So either we could let it pull us down and get depressed, we'll talk about that in a few moments, or we can work on building resilience. To me, there are 3 pillars to resilience. I ask about the third pillar in this channel. If you're interested in the other 2, comment below, non-judgmental channel. The third pillar is, what are you grateful for? Building gratitude. If you're grateful, it's very hard to feel sadness for a prolonged period of time if you have a grateful heart. My experience and that of many others. What are you grateful for? So as for myself, even though I don't know you, I don't know your name, even if you comment below, it might be a handle, I don't know you. I'm thankful you're taking the time to watch, even if it's on and off. I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everyone who buys and reads my books. I operate Compassion Crossing LLC services on a sliding scale fee where the overwhelming majority of my clients pay nothing. When they're able to pay, I'm beyond grateful. I have bills to pay too, but because of those who buy my books, I take that book royalty money and pour it into helping others. So thank you. I'm thankful for my wife, Laura, who's been with me through thick and thin, including health challenges and whatnot. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. So I do want to go into the topic of today's video, and the reason for today's video, it's publishing after filming. Today is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. I'm going to be publishing this in mid-November. I don't have the date memorized. It's probably the third week of November. I have to look where the Monday after November 14th falls. I think my current schedule is up to the 14th. I try to do videos and then put it out there in advance, unless it's really, really urgent. And while I have a heart for this, I'd rather not interfere with the schedule. So one of the channels I follow that I really enjoy, I'm one of those people that I have a wide interest for. I follow this person for that reason and that person for this reason. But I follow a YouTube channel where I believe it's named Happy on Monday. Julie's the content creator. Julie is a lovely individual who retired around the age of 59 and a half with approximately $500,000. And she shares her journey as a retired school teacher that you don't need a lot to retire and the benefits of retirement. And so appreciate her channel for several reasons, including Robert's active retirement. He's 77, retired. But here, those of you who've been following my journey, I got let go. Ageism, because I'm against certain products, injectable medical products, or because I advocated too strongly for my lung cancer patient to be comfortable, I was let go from one agency. And so I have, from that standpoint, I'm semi-retired, and even though I'm doing Compassion Crossing full time and doing this and writing books and so on, from a point of view, I'm retired. So Julie, who does a wonderful job with Happy on Monday, and I'll put in a bunch, today's video is going to have a bunch of links in the video description, but she does a wonderful job. She actually teaches as she's doing her videos. And I'm not a big fan of B-roll, but she does a good job on how she implements it in terms of education. Julie, if you're watching this, you and Robert's active retirement, I learned something new almost every time I watch one of your videos. Thank you so much for what you put out there. But yesterday, the 28th, I was watching one of Julie's videos. It might have been the 27th. It's Monday or Tuesday of this week. And she had a video about depression in retirement. And I'm paraphrasing my understanding of the video. I apologize, Julie, if I get anything wrong. But her findings were the people who are depressed in retirement were probably depressed before retirement. And I agree with her on that. And because this is such a hot topic for me as a registered nurse, I commented in the video, number one, that I appreciate Julie's videos. But I wanted to put out a educational warning. Keep in mind, for a disclaimer, my videos are meant for educational purposes. They're not medical advice, not legal advice, not tax preparation, blah, blah, blah advice. I'm sharing my wisdom, experience, education, and opinions as education to others. So I put in the channel, please understand that in 2022, a major scientific study came out, that depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. Why is this important? For several reasons. One, I mentioned I'm a second career registered nurse. I went to nursing school at the age of 50. Took my prerequisites in 2013, Harrisburg Area Community College, Lancaster campus. I'm the geeky nerd. I poured myself into everything. I was just a proverbial student. That's all I did until after I got into clinicals, and even then a year in, and then I'm working part-time. I'm 50. Can I do this at 50? And by the way, I could, but I had a level of uncertainty. So in nursing school, depression is caused by a chemical imbalance, low serotonin levels. Here's your antidepressant. That was 2013, 2014, 2016 when I graduated. 2017, Harrisburg Area Community College, 7th floor cardiology unit. And my early years, even in the hospice. In 2022, a study came out. Before I go much further, one of the people commenting to me, and I liked everybody who replied. This wasn't a matter that I liked that they were for or against. Every question is a good question, and everybody was asking good questions, including a person who asked, Peter, as a nurse, where's the evidence? It should be peer reviewed. The reason that I'm saying it that way, and I'm going to be jumping around the screen, so bear with me, is a lot of people do not understand. This is part of my frustration with healthcare literacy and a bunch of literacy topics. Just because something's published in a peer-reviewed article, and we're going to get into why with the depression standpoint, doesn't mean that it's accurate, valid, or meaningful. Just in 2025, fraudulent papers beyond belief, rapidly increasing. Look at this, August 4th, 2025. Study sheds light on how reams of fake scientific papers, August 6, 2025. The situation is becoming appalling. Now that's from 2024. One of the researchers, again, I said I follow a number of YouTube channels. One of the researchers I follow was sharing how There's such a outpouring of scientific articles to get published. The people who publish these articles are now using AI as a preliminary review to pass muster. Well, there are researchers out there doing white text so that the ink is white. That's like blue or blue and black on white. They were doing white on white text on their PDF files, giving the AI instructions to pass muster. This is a money industry. This is not about your health and your well-being and actual science using the scientific method. This is a money industry. John Stossel did an expose. I forget whether it's 6 years ago, it might be 4. It's between 4 and 6 years ago. It's literally called academic hoax. So if you go to YouTube and search academic hoax, he did a expose where there was a bunch of self-proclaimed, this is their words, not mine, they're self-proclaimed extremely liberal professors did a scientific study on made-up homosexual dogs. Made-up homosexual dogs, and did a peer-reviewed article about homosexual dogs, rape, and other. It was very off the wall. They didn't think it was going to go anywhere. They did it as literally as fun, and it got published in so many different places, peer-reviewed, that they got caught because they laughed. They were laughing about it and started going on shows. Ha, look what we got away with. They should have let it go a little bit further, in my opinion, and then came out. It would have been a little bit more telling. But what ended up happening is this study came out in 2022 that rocked the industry, because for years, the peer-reviewed articles that everybody was proclaiming, evidence-based science was saying you need a depression pill if you have depression, the majority of the time. And what most consumers don't know is that in one way, shape, or form, it's not always a direct kickback, because of Stark laws and other laws that are out there. It's not always here's a $5 bill or a $100 bill or a $1,000 bill. There's many ways that practitioners, including pediatricians, for following certain schedules, I am unbelievably serious, they get lots of money for what they do. It's not healthcare. It is not healthcare. Well, this article came out. This study came out. Not only did it say depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. That was number one. Number two, all previous studies that said that it were unethically and fraudulently conducted for the big dollars. The pharmaceuticals were benefiting, and the doctors prescribing them left and right were benefiting. You could do your own research. Antidepressants being handed out like candy. And I am not kidding you. Certain parts of healthcare is like a factory. You stay sick, you buy the medications, you pay your copays and the insurance and everything else, and everybody else is getting rich, but you're going downhill. It's not what you think. And that's part of why I like doing educational videos. It's not what you think. So, this one, the urban legend being that it is a legend that it's a chemical imbalance. It's a legend. So, in terms of what I want to cover before we get to the landing zone, 1, depression is not caused by a chemical imbalance. 2, I want to hone in on what a lot of people don't understand is side effects are when, not if. Side effects are when it will happen to you and not if. The danger of being on a single antidepressant medication with serotonin syndrome. And I need to put in a very quick disclaimers before. I am not a doctor. Please do not ever stop medications without talking to your doctor. And if it's about stopping an antidepressant or blood pressure medications, there are a number of medications out there you need to taper off. You need to go slowly off the medication, or there could be huge healthcare risks. And in the best case, you call your doctor, you ask them to do a pharmacy consult with you. All 3 parties can be on the phone at the same time. Speakerphones can work wonders. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm being real. Get on the phone. How do you taper off? How do you do this safely? But I want to go over Serotonin syndrome, by the way, if you're a hospice nurse, please pay attention for this. When we get to serotonin syndrome, this is critical. I'll go into why in a few moments. So I want to go over delayed medication reactions, serotonin syndrome, the SSRIs, the extreme risk and half-life issues. I do want to bring out, this is one of my favorite channels, is Therapy in a Nutshell. The lady does a wonderful job. She even brings up this is the actual review back in 2022. Another one, this is a psychiatrist who warns of the risks of SSRIs, and he gets picked on a lot because a lot of the his fellow psychiatrists would rather you buy the pills. Here, take one, and I might be being facetious, but it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And then there's going to be an ending discussion. Well, Peter, if depression is not caused by a chemical balance, what's it caused by? So let me just shrink my picture here. Again, I'll put a lot of links in the description below. Late onset medication side effects. Keeping in mind, hospice usually sees patients. They can be on pediatric hospice. There's a rise in that, especially since 2021, with the release of certain injectable products. 2021, there's been an explosion of a lot of rare cancers, a lot of heartache. And these are elective products, even if the pediatrician or other parties are saying, you need to. No, you don't. You have the right to say no as a human being. Your body, your choice. That's the real meaning of my body, my choice, not to kill a baby. So I get patients at the tail end of life as a hospice nurse. So they've been on the med 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They have a side effect. And most of the time, most practitioners do not go back and look, oh, it's the med causing it. Let me take you off that you should have been off 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe you should not have even been on the medication. I had a 104-year-old patient that was being killed, and I do mean this literally, being killed by 3 blood pressure medications and an anticoagulant. 3 blood pressure medications and what's commonly known as a blood thinner. I got permission from the daughter to work with the doctor. It was like pulling teeth from the doctor. Even though the doctor agreed, the hospice medical director agreed this patient only had 2 weeks or less to live, and was giving me, as the nurse, a hard time having her stop the blood pressure, having him give me permission to stop the blood pressure medication. She only has 2 weeks. Are you kidding me? Is this really? Got her off all 3, not all at the same time, because again, it was like pulling teeth. It was like 1 day apart for each. Finally got her off all 3, plus the anticoagulant, and she's not terminal anymore. From being bedbound and barely coherent and falling out of bed left and right, not necessarily on the right side, because that bed was against the wall on that side, to where she's getting up and dressing herself, except for her bra, using the walker appropriately in the right direction, going out and feeding herself a regular texture diet, having very full conversations. Granted, some of them were very nonsensical, fanciful, but they were articulated correctly. Everything was in the context of her fantasy. So to me, it wasn't a fast 7A. My fellow nurses, fast 7A, it's not just, 5 or 6 intelligible words, you got it or not. Fast 7A, when you're talking just that part, keep in mind fast is linear. You cannot skip any steps. That 7A is 5 to 6 intelligible words that are in context of whatever you're talking about, preferably about functional items. So I'm recommending to everybody, the team, no longer terminal. She was being killed by regular prescription medications. Let that sink in. Side effects are when, not if. Side effects are when, not if. So I'll include this, and in the references, there's Washington Post and other sources where it's like, yeah, I've had a patient taking losartan get angioedema. That's not even listed. That's for lisinopril. Any of the prils can get angioedema as a severe side effect. That's a life-threatening medical emergency. For the sartans, not even listed as a side effect. Got permission for this. Was I cannot Dr. Barr, he doesn't walk on water, but he's an amazing doctor. He trusts the nurses. Doctor, can I get her off this? Yes. It wasn't pulling teeth. I described what was happening. Good call, Peter. Got her off. She recovered. You hear me, my fellow hospice nurses? Part of hospice is removing preventable distress. If we do this, they live longer with higher quality of life. That's why it's critical to dig in for medication reconciliation and not take for granted that the medication's working as intended. Any side effect shouldn't be it's the disease process all the time. Look at the medications, because that's what the family's going to do to the morphine or lorazepam, which they'll blame that. Well, you should be looking at the medications and not saying blame them, but having a serious discussion with pharmacy and other parties. Could it be the meds that's causing the tremor, or this or that? You might be adding days, weeks, or months, or maybe they're not even hospice appropriate if you do that. I've had several, I can't claim a lot. I've had a handful of patients that, because I dug in and worked with the appropriate parties and had either meds changed or discontinued, they got off hospice. They were not terminal. Hospice isn't about killing people, especially when you have somebody that's digging in. And I can't encourage you enough of that. So keeping things rolling. This, I mentioned my fellow hospice nurses, and any nurse, any practitioner, please, serotonin syndrome. It is rare, and it can happen with just one SSRI. They don't have to be on multiple. They don't have to be on an SSRI and something like St. John's wort, which is a herbal product that can amplify the effect of SSRIs. We have to remember over-the-counter products, homeopathic, naturopathic, everything has side effects. There's no holy grail. Everything is side effects. And I've had patients that had serotonin syndrome. Now, why did I mention, especially for my hospice nurses to pay attention? Serotonin syndrome can mimic terminal restlessness. Serotonin syndrome can mimic terminal restlessness, and it can make it look like they're transitioning. I had a dementia patient. It's even harder to detect. I am weird. Those of you watching the channel know I'm autistic, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. I am grateful to God that I caught it, because this person who had dementia was going downhill. They went from a memory care unit to skilled care because they were going downhill, and they were showing signs and symptoms of terminal restlessness. And thank God I followed my own advice. Change of condition, med rec. If there's a change of condition, med rec. Did a med rec. There were no recent changes to the medication, but I questioned the dose of the SSRI. It was a moderately high. It wasn't the highest. There was 50 milligrams or more, but I questioned it. I went back to they were Normandy Ridge. Normandy Ridge in York does a wonderful job. They're one of the better nursing homes out there. They did have 100% recovery during COVID before Operation Warp Speed. I worked at Medicare Kingston Court that had 99% before Operation Warp Speed. There was not a fatal pandemic in the majority of the locations throughout the entire United States of America. There's a lot of number foolery. Statistics can be manipulated. Numbers can be manipulated. And when you hear the media saying, infected, death, and no percentages and no real sources, I wish people would wake up, please. We still have a lot of people sleeping. And I know I got people mad at me just by saying that. Well, are you calling? Yes, I am calling it planned, calling it fake, and calling it what it is. I was there. I was literally there on the front line. I was seeing things, and I'm the geeky nerd that digs in and does research. And I'm not the only one. There were doctors and nurses speaking out. We were silenced through the roof. But getting back to serotonin syndrome, which is extremely real, it can mimic your terminal restlessness, your terminal delirium, terminal agitation. I let the staff know, worked with their pharmacy, the doctor got her off of this the correct way, and she lived close to 3 months longer. I want you to sink that in. If I would have just, it's terminal restlessness, let's start the morphine, let's start haloperidol and the other medications that we use, she would have died sooner. Not because of, these are non-euthanizing medications, but because I didn't treat the cause, which was serotonin syndrome, which has the possibility of being reversed, she would have died faster. I would have kept her comfortable. You could give yourself that consolation. We kept her comfortable, but she would have died a few months faster. We caught it. So I'll include this in the description below. I have one about early detection for serotonin syndrome in dementia patients. This references one of my patients with that. And I did encounter several more since then. This is more widespread than what we would like to acknowledge. Keep in mind, whatever's reported out there, we're not talking about just the VAERS database and other databases out there for different injuries due to medications. Whatever reported, there's probably 90 to 100 to several thousand% more that go on that don't get reported. So when you talk about SSRIs, and this goes with any medication, all medications have what's called a half-life. And what a half-life is, it's not a it's only a partial explaining term. I'm going to deal with morphine as an example because I know morphine the best. Morphine's half-life is 2 hours. So if you have somebody that receives 10 milligrams of morphine, that's a half a 1 ml syringe, and they get that at 8 a.m. in the morning, pick whatever time zone, that part doesn't matter, as long as you're consistent with following me. 8 a.m. in the morning, 10 milligrams. At 10 a.m. in the morning, and yes, my fellow nurses that are in the pharmacology considering good kidney function, and on hospice, they don't. But because we can't test for that, presume, let's make it easy. It's going to follow the normal half-life rules. 8 a.m., 10 milligrams. 10 a.m., you didn't give them anything else. Nothing. 10 a.m., they have 5 milligrams left in. It's half of what was there. At 12 noon, it's half of the 5, so it's 2.5 milligrams. At 2 p.m., it's now 1.25 milligrams. At 4 p.m., it's it's divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Eventually, it's out of their body. Eventually. But it's a slow process, especially the longer the half-life. So you get the half-life. Look at this for fluoxetine. 4 to 6 days to have half of it out of your system. You're almost like a whole week. You still have half of the dose in your body. A whole week. 96 to 144 hours. Still left in your body. Half. And then you go another week, and then another half's out, and another week. We're talking months before fluoxetine is out. I think fluoxetine is Prozac. I'm going from memory. But how many months before it's completely out of your bloodstream where it wouldn't show up the least amount on your bloodstream? This is part of the issue when it comes to the side effects, because that builds up in your body. It builds up in your body. It builds up in your body. So where I do want to end with this is a number of people, even in this thread with Happy on Monday, and I appreciated every question. I was giving them links to the one study. Well, what's it caused by? And I'm going to share the prevailing thought process. You're free to do your own homework on this. Please do. I follow the philosophy of trust but verify. Trust but verify. Is you have a real or imagined, keeping in mind imagined could be real in a person's mind, sad event happen. Maybe it's a whole multitude of sad events happen. And we, the person who that sad event or multiple events happen to, keep reflecting on them. We keep thinking on them. We're circling the drain. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I want people to build habits of building resilience. Have a habit of asking yourself 1 to several times a day, what are you grateful for? Have that habit of asking that question. What are you grateful for? Well, you could build other types of habits. You could build addictions. People could get addicted to their own sad thoughts. What is the definition of depression? I'm paraphrasing my understanding, or I should say I'm saying my understanding. Depression is sadness that will not go away. Well, why won't the sadness go away? Because we keep going back to the sadness. I was there. I was there. I shared in my video, can somebody like me be saved? And I shared a little bit of my childhood history. I was severely abused, severely, mental, physical, all types, emotional. My adopted father, who was an alcoholic, the primary source of where the abuse came from, would tell me, even your own birth mother threw you away. You're garbage. You're never going to amount to anything. You're nothing. Be happy we took you in. And I still remember I would go back. Maybe he's right. I knew that he wasn't. There was a part of me that maybe he's right. Maybe I'm nothing. I'll never amount to anything. Maybe I ought to end things. And there was a time where I actually did try. Thank God it didn't work. Yes, I committed myself for a period of time. It's not a proud experience in my life. But a lot of us in the field, depression is caused by sadness that doesn't go away because we who had these happen to us or at us or around us keep going back to the event. And we start, in our head, we're hugging and holding on to the event. We won't let go. We keep circling the drain. And before we know it, we feel nothing will help us. We have no way out. We would be better off dead. And I'm not saying we are. I'm saying we are. Well, if SSRIs can't fix depression, no, they cannot. Because you didn't deal with what the cause was. At the very best, it masks everything, including your feelings. Why do you think people will become alcoholics or get into drugs or cutting? They don't want to feel what they're like. They feel pulled to whatever it is, and they'd rather not go there, so they have to have some type of roadblock to not get there. So they come up with different ways, and sometimes the antidepressants can be that way for them. But what is the real cure? I'm going to give you two thoughts. I'm not saying you have to believe or follow. Number one, I believe in salvation through Christ Jesus, and hear me out for thought number two. If you don't believe, I need to tell you, Jesus said he's the only way. He said he's the only way. Well, Peter, what did he do for you? I had dysthymia. If you look up was it DSY or DYS? They usually transpose. I have a type of dyslexia. It's not standard. But dysthymia is low-grade depression, can have clinical exacerbations, clinical breakthroughs. And I've had it for decades. And when I first was saved, I didn't get immediately healed. In fact, when I with all intentions not to wake up in the morning, had that event, that was within my first year of salvation, nothing that I'm proud of. But that doesn't mean everything's hunky-dory. Sometimes things get worse before they get better. Sometimes they don't get better for a very long time, or you don't know. But to me, I do know faith in Christ Jesus. And I did get healed. It took decades, but I did get healed of my dysthymia. But the other thing, and this is my encouragement to each and every one watching, is treat everyone around you. Everyone around you. Treat everyone around you as if they are in a state of trauma. Well, Peter, they look okay to me. Treat everyone with kid gloves. Treat everyone with love, compassion, empathy, care, brotherly and sisterly love, platonic love. Treat everyone with kindness, thoughtfulness, gentleness. Let your gentleness be known to all. Because as the person that you're interacting with, two things, we're on the landing zone, two things. Number one, The more that you are kind and thoughtful and interact in their life, they will eventually trust you to let down their guard and say, you know, John, Jacob, Judy, whatever your name is, I've been having trouble in this area. I don't have a clue what to do. You might not have a clue either. By the way, this is not a matter of don't have to fix anybody, but you can give them space, walk alongside them, remind them that they're not garbage, remind them how much they matter, what difference they're making in the world. And along the way, you're going to have somebody that you could confide in, because that's how we get through depression. We can't do it all by ourselves. And I'm reflecting on that a little bit because in some ways, God helped me through a major portion, just God and I, but that was probably why it took over a decade, because I wasn't letting people in, and that's on me. I encourage you to be out there, make a difference in this world. If you're going through something, you matter. If you need somebody to talk to, in the description has my email address. It might be the YouTube about or area, or comment below. I thank you for your time, and take care.